Like Becca was saying, we're going to learn how to create a GitHub Copilot extension today. Like Becca was saying, I'm a dev advocate over at a company called Pomerium. I'm from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So if you like poutine, that's a plus in my books. I'm pretty much Nikki T online everywhere, and you can find me everywhere at nikki.t.online. And I'm also not a big fan of spiders, although the little ones now smaller than a quarter, I'm generally okay with these days. I know they're eating bugs, so. Um, yeah, so what are we going to cover? We're going to talk about what is GitHub Copilot, what is the GitHub Copilot extension, the anatomy of a Copilot extension, and then we're going to build. There is this Copilot extension template that I created. There'll be a QR code if you want to snap that during the live stream, or you can just go to that URL now. We're also going to be using the GitHub Copilot extension SDK preview, and we're going to go through just kind of setting up your development environment, and then we're going to wrap things up. I did have 2 slides to show that I've been part of Virtual Coffee for 5 years now, but I think my slide deck didn't update. So I had this nice picture showing my initial convo with Becca in DMs on Twitter back in 2020 saying, hey, is there a slot free? And everything's like super automated now at Virtual Coffee, but at the time it was literally like copy paste, here's a Zoom link. So anyways, shout out to VC. So before we get started, so like, why are we even talking about Copilot extensions? Well, like Becca says, and my old CEO, B. Dougie says, you got to have a story. So here's a bit of story time. So I did work at a company called Open Source prior to where I'm at. Think of it as like GitHub Analytics on steroids. And we built some cool stuff there, including a AI feature called Star Search. And this is something that you could just use to ask stuff about repositories and projects. So like you can see here, Brandon Roberts, who's an old coworker of mine, who you might know from Analog.js. I'm just asking what he's worked on here, and there's some information that popped up. And that was just like a classical just chat interface for, AI. That brought me to like talking at work, like there's these things called Copilot extensions. Maybe we can build one for open source. So I got a chance to hang out with a couple engineers from GitHub, and that's what we did on a live stream. And basically, I ended up making this proof of concept for Star Search, which was open source AI offering as a Copilot extension. So that's kind of how we got here and how I got into all this. There is that template that I mentioned. Today, I kind of went YOLO last night, and I vibe coded a Copilot extension that we're going to look at. This is what I'm going to walk through in terms of like the demo and stuff, but it's based off of the Copilot extension template I created. So if you want to grab a snap of that QR code, you can. I'll leave that up for a second. If you want to follow along, if not, feel free to take a peek at it later. Give it a star if you like. So let's kind of dig into things. So we're definitely going to talk about Copilot extensions, but what is GitHub Copilot? I feel like most people probably have an idea, but I'm going to just kind of give a rundown of what I think Copilot is. So it's a coding assistant. It's kind of like your pair programming buddy. You can perform inline code completions. There's capabilities to ask questions, get answers, refactor files. And it can be extended via GitHub Copilot extensions, which we'll dig into shortly. And it also has a new agent mode as of early February 2025. So like if you used like Cursor or Windsurf, something like that, it's like it can just keep working on stuff. So like you ask a question, it fixes something, and it keeps going on its own. Aside from that, GitHub Copilot can now be used in any editor if they leverage the recently released Copilot language server SDK. So you're not just limited to Microsoft properties now. So speaking of which, so where can you use it? So you can use it on github.com, Visual Studio if you're a .NET developer, Visual Studio Code, GitHub Code Spaces, JetBrains IDEs, even Xcode if you're an iOS developer. And you can even use it in Vim and NeoVim because there's always somebody that says, by the way, I use NeoVim. And you could, like I mentioned, there's any editor that leverages the Copilot language server SDK. You can actually even use GitHub Copilot on the command line now. So you need to install it in the command line, but you can ask questions like that in the CLI and you'll get answers. So here I'm asking, how do you set permissions on a script? And it's going to think about it, and then it's going to give some examples and either explain it, copy the command. So that's just another way you can leverage Copilot. So what is a GitHub Copilot extension? I think the name kind of says it all, but because it literally extends GitHub Copilot. So what does that mean? You can create a custom AI powered tool, integrate with third-party services, and as of recently, I think a couple months ago, you can now access files and the editor context. So like if you've used GitHub Copilot and you're asking questions about a file, you'll see the file in the UI there of Copilot. You can actually get access to that in a Copilot extension too now. Now, there's two types of Copilot extensions, and I'm going to take a sip of water here because my mouth is very dry for some reason. Cool. So there's two types of extensions. There's a skill set, and this makes it easy to connect third-party services and custom APIs into the GitHub Copilot workflow. You know, give a trivial example, like you might have things like you ask, what is the weather? And this skill set might have a weather tool in it. So that being installed on your account for GitHub, you would be able to say, what's the weather like? And you would get an answer in Copilot. And the other mode is you could be an agent. So that gives you complete control over handling the request in Copilot. And it also enables custom workflows through integrations with large language models and APIs while managing conversation, text, and user interactions in Copilot. If that sounds like a mouthful, we'll get into it. We'll see it in practical use shortly. And the only other thing I'll say about a GitHub Copilot extension is it works anywhere GitHub Copilot is available, except for the command line, at least for now. Maybe in future it will. So what does it look like? So here I am in GitHub Copilot, and I'm asking this Copilot extension I created called Olama Copilot. I'm just saying, memoize this function. And I have a particular file here. This is just a screenshot, obviously, but the thing that you need to know about using a Copilot extension is you always have to start your prompt, if you're using that extension, with the prompt's name. So you have to say name of your extension or the extension you installed, and then your question. If you add it later, like if you say like, hey, Copilot, can Olama Copilot memoize this function, it's not going to use your Copilot extension. It's actually just going to use GitHub Copilot. All right, so let's talk about the anatomy of a Copilot extension. So there's a few things here. So basically, you need a publicly accessible web application. So, it just has to be available on the internet. And the other thing is you need to have a registered GitHub application. And we're going to go through all this. There are Copilot extensions just for VS Code that doesn't require a GitHub application, but I'm not going through that whole flow, but there should be links to if you want to look into just a VS Code specific one. I'm going for the more general purpose. So this kind of extension would work on github.com, VS Code, GitHub Codespaces, wherever. Now, the other things you need is in the GitHub app, you need to set the permissions for the GitHub app. These are the minimal ones you need. So if you want to use an extension, you have to have Copilot chat read-only permissions. There is no write permission for this. It's literally just read-only, but that is like the bare minimum that you need to use a Copilot extension. If you want to have access to files, like I was mentioning before, there's also a context permission, and that's read-only as well. That one is optional, but if you do want to do something with files that you're asking questions about, you'll need that enabled. Security is important. So here in this example here, I'm asking my Olama Copilot extension, can you improve get Olama response, which is a function in that Copilot extension. And initially, you're going to see it fails. And the GitHub Copilot interface actually asks me, do I want to allow Olama Copilot to actually read files? And so you have to explicitly allow that. You can allow it just for that particular project you're in using it, or you can say allow it for everywhere. Okay, so let's do some demo time here. I'm going to switch over to coding view, and we're going to talk about a few things here. Um, the main thing is it's a web app. So you can literally write this in whatever you want. I happen to be a fan of JavaScript, so I'm doing this with Hono.js, but literally, if you can create a web application that can be publicly accessible on the internet, it literally does not matter what language it's built in. The only thing I'll say is we're going to be using the Copilot extensions preview here. Um, at the moment, this is only available for JavaScript and TypeScript projects. It is open source though, so like if you are interested in using this in your language, like whether that's Go or like Elixir, I know Brian Meeker is probably in the chat from Virtual Coffee, who's a big fan of Elixir. You know, you could always port it to that. I feel like at some point other languages will be available, but I guess maybe JavaScript's pretty ubiquitous these days, so I think that's probably why they went with that language for the SDK to begin with, at least. Um, and essentially, it really is just a web app. And here I'm using Hano, so like if you've never used Hano, that's okay. I'll zoom in a bit here. If you've used Express, it's similar. So you basically have like your app, and then you can say like get. So like this gets like the route, or you can post, etc. Goal is not really to dig into what Hano is today, but we have this application running right now. So I'm gonna actually open up another browser window. So give me a sec here. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's go there. Okay, and this should be running. So if I go to localhost 3000, cool. So we can see here, welcome to the Copilot extension template. So this is the web app that is going to be the Copilot extension. And the other thing is we do need to make this publicly available. So you can do this many ways, but I use VS Code every day. So basically they have something called port forwarding where you can actually just say like, pick a particular port and make it publicly accessible on the internet. This is similar to tools like ngrok, or if you've used Cloudflare, which is Cloudflare's version of this. But because I'm in VS Code, it's in here already, so I just happen to use this. The one thing you need to know is initially when you open this port, it's private. So you have to set, I can't zoom this part in here because it's the native OS, but you basically have to change the port visibility to public, and that's what it is right now. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this URL here. And if we come back here, I'm going to paste it in. So you can see here, this is a publicly available internet address, and you're going to see it's available. I'm going to drop it in the chat. Becca, if you want to drop that in the YouTube chat, maybe. No biggie if you don't. But people can go click on that, and you should be able to see this is my actual computer running. This is localhost 3000 on my computer. So if people go to that address, you should be able to access it. So that's the one part of the Copilot extension that I mentioned. The other part is, let's go to GitHub, and we need to configure a GitHub app. So basically you go to your settings and then developer settings. I'll zoom in here a bit. I have a few already. This is the one we're going to be looking at after the product manager, but for now we can, yeah, I guess we can look there. It's fine. Okay, thank you, security. 1 second. Cool. Pass keys for the win. Okay, so there's a few things here in terms of, so this is, we have the running web app right now for Copilot, the Copilot extension. The other thing we need is to create this GitHub app. I already have one created here, but I'm just going to go through the settings that you need to add. And if you don't remember all these settings, don't worry about it. In the Copilot extension template I have a whole guide on how to set all this up. And also shout out to Mika, who gave a talk or is giving a talk. She helped integrate that docs into my Copilot extension template. So the first thing is you need a name. And aside from that, like we're just using it in a development environment right now. So like if this was like getting ready for production, you'd have like, more details like what is this app and stuff. But for now, you would have a branded homepage and stuff. But for now, I'm using the URL I've exposed on my computer just because this is a required field. Um, this part here, and I'll zoom in a bit. Sorry, I'm just looking. Okay, there's this callback URL, and it's not necessary for a Copilot extension to work, but it's required to create the GitHub app right now. So when I was hanging with Gregor and Francis from GitHub, they just said put one in for now. I think later on, once they refine this, maybe they'll just make it optional if you're creating a GitHub Copilot extension. Aside from that, this will be checked off by default, a webhook. You don't need that. And that's pretty much it there for settings. And then the other thing is the permissions, like I was saying. So this one, I was testing something yesterday. We actually don't need this. So I'm just going to go and remove it. And let's just save that. I'm going to show you what the literal permissions you need just to get things working. So you have to go to account permissions in the GitHub Copilot app here. And then down here, you're going to see there's this Copilot chat permission. By default, it's set to no access. We need to have it set to read only. The other thing is I have this enabled right now, but this is if you want to have access to the editor context, like open files and stuff, so you can actually send those files to your Copilot extension to maybe do additional processing that Copilot doesn't do. And so just to reiterate, the Copilot editor context permission, that's optional, but you always need the Copilot chat one. Cool, cool. Let's close that and let's move back over here. So let me just close that. Okay. So essentially, let's just talk about a bit of best practices. So we're using the Copilot extension preview SDK. When you make a request to the Copilot extension, it's going to post to this address here, which is just the slash, like the root route. And there's some headers that the GitHub Copilot chat is going to send to you. And basically, we just kind of validate this to make sure that it's a valid request. And aside from that, there's some nice helper functions that we can use too. But essentially, if it's not valid, we return, you're not authorized. If other errors occur, there's helper functions like create errors event and so on. And there's a bunch of things here, but I'm just doing a time check here. We're gonna go into this is the code here right now, but let's go into demo mode. So I'll put a breakpoint anyways, just so we can see part of this. And okay, so I made this extension. It's called the Product Manager. And a bit of context here. I gave this talk at All Things Open AI. It was well received. And for folks who know Gant Laborde, he's an awesome speaker. And he gave me some great feedback. He said he loved the talk, but it'd be fun if you made some kind of wacky extension instead, just to showcase things. So I created the Product Manager Copilot extension. So what does this do? Well, basically, I've created some commands you can do here. And I'm going to say, at the Product Manager, give me a feature. And I'll shrink this down a bit. Whoops. There. Okay, so you're going to see here, it comes in. And we've got this is just talking about the validation. So we can see here, we've got a payload coming in from the Copilot extension. We can see here, we got the stuff that we need to validate the request to make sure everything's good. And then I'm just going to go ahead and let it run. So now we come over here and the product manager is working, hopefully giving me a new feature. So the idea of the product manager is just to give me a wacky feature. So it's saying introducing the Mood Food Bluetooth toaster. I don't even know what it's going to give me. So Basically, okay, that's cool. I'm gonna say let's improve it. Let's say support. I don't know. Mice driven development. I don't know. I'm just putting something wacky. It's gonna take my advice and it's gonna incorporate it into its idea here. And point to mention here is like GitHub Copilot can do a lot of stuff, but here I'm just interacting with something like this is not something that Copilot out of the box itself could do, which is having a conversation about brainstorming a wacky idea. So it goes, okay, yeah, all right. So it added now with mouse motivation. So I'm like, cool, all right. I'm like, okay, I'm done. So, and these commands, these slash commands, these are just something I put into my extension. So now I'm going to say done. And so some things I want to mention here is these helper functions from the preview SDK allow me to actually have some UI. So like I'm able to create this dialog to say, do I want to create a markdown product requirements document from the ideas we've been brainstorming? I can say dismiss and it goes, okay, that's cool. Glad you're happy. But I could also do it again and say slash feature and let this go. Cool. It's a big into mood features for some reason. Okay, I'll just say sounds good. So I'm not going to give any feedback this time. I'm going to say done. And I'm going to say, cool, that sounds good. Let's generate a document that we can actually start to implement. So I'm going to say accept. And the Copilot extension goes ahead and creates this markdown of a product requirements document. And then I'm like, okay, good. Let's bring that to the team. And then now I can just come over here and I can say new document and we're good to go. And we've got our wacky product idea that's about to be productized. So silly extension, I know, but just to kind of showcase some of the stuff you can do with Copilot extensions. So let's just move back to the slide deck. If you want to, you can pull down this product manager Copilot extension. It's based off of the Copilot extension template I created. And here's the preview SDK if you want to grab that too. And if we just move on here, I'll let people take a snap of that if they want to. We basically went through this about, setting up the local development server and configuring the GitHub app. I just got too excited about the demo, so I was supposed to show this first. So we've done all that basically. So wrapping up, it's still early days for Copilot extensions, and I'm expecting kind of like a Cambrian explosion of Copilot extensions. And everybody keeps saying this, and I do believe it. I think 2025 is the year of agents. So if you want to go give these two repos a star, I won't say no if you do. And I'll leave you with go ahead and build your own Copilot extension. And here's a few resources. You can check that out. Here's the slide deck if you want to grab. I'm sure it'll be available after too, but I'll just leave that for a second. Cool. And that's it. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Nick. That was fantastic. You did a wonderful job.
Oh, thanks. I'm definitely very thirsty for some reason. I have no idea why.
So I know that you talked a bit about this is still early days. And you built this like I don't even know if it was generally available when you started building your extension, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this I built it like last summer and that SDK had just come out, I think, because we knew Gregor from GitHub because we did some work with them at open source. But yeah, it's still early days, and I honestly don't hear a lot of talk about them right now. I really haven't seen much content about it. Like, there's a lot of talk about Model Context Protocol (MCP), which everybody's heard about, I'm sure. But I think this is just another thing you can put in your AI arsenal tool belt, if that makes sense.
So if you were gonna build something else, or you're like, hey, I've got a week to build something really cool, GitHub extension, Copilot extension, what would your idea be?
Yeah, it depends where you use it, I guess, because like you can use it on like github.com, like I was mentioning. You can also use it in the mobile app, but I think if I was in the editor, I like I said, I kind of vibe coded that extension last night. Uh, I do feel like it would be a great way to generate some documents for things as a starting point. Like obviously this was a silly example, but I can see like LLMs are really good with text. So like, just getting all your ideas together and then like riffing on an idea or like even having it suggest ideas. Like I think I think what I have there right now, but in a less wacky way,
Mm,
like what the way it would work maybe more is like maybe it analyzes your code base and goes like, what are some features or like maybe pull in some information about your product to see like what are some potential features I could suggest and just as starting points, not as like take it as verbatim and roll with it, but um, just to be able to riff on something because I don't know about yourself, Becca, but I tend to use Copilot or like ChatGPT or Claude, really like a pairing buddy. And a lot of times it's just having a conversation as opposed to just give me an answer. And I find that super helpful. And just generating docs, like that document I generated at the end of the demo, that was just a template. So you like I said, AI is really good with stuff. So if you have like at your work, you have a specific template for some kind of document and you can just kind of chat. I think that's just a quick way to just move a little faster in terms of certain workflows. And I think documents would be a good one. The other thing I'd say is I didn't have time to do this. I was a bit off too much last night, but more than I could chew. But creating issues straight from Copilot with an extension. So like, hey, I found a bug, create an issue for me. It could send the line or even the chunk of code, and then just create an issue. Like you might refine it after and stuff. But that I think would be, just another, because when you're in the context of something, you don't want to be
yep.
pulled out of that context. So I think stuff like that would be super useful too.
Yeah, I love that kind of streamlining that workflow. So just like powering up what your existing tool set is. So great.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.